The following is a local resident producer's program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to Oshkosh. Cheryl, Hentz, and Dan Rylance here, and we're very pleased on this edition to be continuing our discussions and interviews with candidates in the upcoming spring election. We're still working on people who are in the primary race, and in case you're not aware of it, the primary will be held on Tuesday, February 16th. And joining us in this half hour is David Keck. He is running for Circuit Court Branch 5. In the seat currently held by Judge William H. Carver. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it.
Yep.
You prefer Dave or David?
Either is fine.
Okay, all right. But on the ballot, you're listed as David?
David.
Okay, all right. Okay, good enough. Well, we appreciate your being here. You are, of course, one of 5 candidates. We've interviewed most of them already, and the other one will be interviewed next week. So we're pretty well set on judicial candidates go. We should say, however, that the one who will not be appearing on the show is Caroline Carver. We extended an invitation to Ms. Carver. She was like a week late in getting back to us on that date. Then I extended an alternate date to her because when she did get back to us, she said she couldn't make it. I offered her another date, and she has yet to respond. So we're
just
not,
a footnote on that. Cheryl is trying to get, there are 12 candidates in the primary, either for council and the judgeship, and we have a limited time limit. So I mean, if she's got to fill the slots, and if they don't get back, then there's someone else that'll take it. So I mean, it was just just a matter of scheduling.
Well, and this I just thought was kind of rude to not even get back at all because, I'm trying to fill slots and trying to give people a chance. So anyway, that being said, now we got that little disclosure.
David's here.
You're here, and we want to talk about your candidacy. So,
thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself first and why you're running for judge.
Thank you. Well, I am a court commissioner here, and I've been a court commissioner for about 3.5 years. I was appointed when Judge Seifert was elected. I was appointed to the position she was in. Prior to that, I was a public defender here in Oshkosh for 13 years. Tried a number of cases, and I think you saw some of the cases
I
tried. I hope, as circuit court judge, I hope to continue with the programs that I've started and hope to continue to contribute that way to the legal community here in Oshkosh. I think that as a court commissioner, I have noticed that I do have an impact on the way the legal system is run, and I think as a circuit court judge I would have an even greater impact, and that's the reason why I'm running for judge.
What's the difference, Dave, between a court commissioner and a judge? Because while you do a lot of the same things, they are different, hence the different names.
The circuit court judge is elected through the political process, like we're seeing right now. Court commissioners are appointed by the judges. There are 3 of us here in the county, and we are appointed to take care of certain types of cases that really, I think, are part of the overload. The courts are pretty full of cases. The difference between a court commissioner and a circuit court judge, as far as what they do day to day, there are certain types of cases that only the circuit court can do. That is sentencing a defendant, presiding over a jury trial, placing a juvenile on supervision, and holding contested divorce hearings. Essentially everything else the court commissioners can do. My caseload is primarily family law. I do all the restraining orders in the county, and also I do civil cases like small claims hearings. I also, at times, also fill in and do criminal cases, bond hearings, juvenile detention hearings, preliminary hearings in felony cases. I also do probate.
Okay. What have you, you know, in your time on the bench so far as a court commissioner, what have you learned so far?
Well, I think what I've learned because of the types of cases that I do, I hear contested cases every day, which means that sometimes all day, and sometimes for parts of the day, but for every day I hear cases where two parties come into my courtroom, and these are people I've never seen before in most cases, and they've got a dispute, some type of dispute, and I take testimony, sworn testimony from each of them, and within a few minutes I make a decision as to who prevails.
A lot of pressure.
Well, it is a lot of pressure, and I think I really enjoy it, and the reason I enjoy it is I think because I have taken my experience, I think, as a public defender, I think helped in this way. But what I do is I try to take a logical approach to every case that I do. I've developed procedures for each type of case so that I can handle the cases efficiently, and I try to get right to the heart of each case as efficiently, as quickly as I can, and still give every party an opportunity to be heard. And I think that's really the essence of what you have to do to really efficiently hear cases, and to hear them fairly. I think is to do them in each case in the same way. So I've learned over the years. I've learned how to develop procedures for each type of case, and that's, I guess, the main thing I've learned. From being a public defender, I think that what I really learned there, you have the same kinds of pressures. You've got a lot of cases. As you know, public defenders see a lot of clients and see a lot of cases. We see just about everybody who comes through the system at some point. And I think that in that same way, you learn to be very efficient with the way you handle cases.
Sure.
You have to be as professional, and you have to be as thorough in every case, even though you're looking at a lot of cases. And I think that makes you efficient with your time. And I think, as I said, I think it also helps you sort of narrow down to the essential issues that are important in each case. And that's sort of what I've worked on the whole time I've been a court commissioner. And that's part of how I can.
A couple of follow-ups on that. Let's say Cheryl and I are before you on opposite sides. Do we file anything with you before that, or is this strictly cold?
No, you would have to file something to get into court.
Okay, so you will have read whatever we filed before we come before you, or not?
Well, yeah, I will have read the petition, but usually I
Okay.
read that as when we're in the hearing. I don't like to look at a lot of the case before I.
But you have some familiarity with it.
Well,
or not?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, really, I don't think that you can the danger there is that you decide a case before you've even called the case, and that's what you can't.
True.
That's what you can't do.
Okay.
I think what you have to do is have the two parties come in, and what I always do, no matter what kind of case it is, I always to the plaintiff, summarize your case in a sentence or two.
Okay.
The defendant, summarize your case in a sentence or two. Okay. Then I can kind of see where the issues are, and then we can take some testimony and we can kind of narrow it down from there. I think the danger of reading the file too carefully and going through and making notes in a file is that you'll only see one side's filings. You see the petitioner's filings, and the danger is that you've sort of made a decision in your own mind before you've even heard the case. The legal way to decide a case is to decide it based on the facts that are introduced at a hearing.
Okay.
Until there's a hearing, there are no facts.
Okay.
So there really aren't any facts until there's admissible facts in a hearing. So I think that answers your question.
Yeah. Are any of your decisions appealable?
They're all appealable.
Even small claims?
Yes,
really?
all decisions.
I didn't realize
there's
that.
There's a procedure called de novo review.
Okay.
And that goes, any of my decisions go to the circuit court. So a judge decides anybody who doesn't like my decision gets a de novo, and it's de novo because it's Latin for new.
Sure.
You get a new hearing. Unlike the circuit court's appeal, you appeal a circuit court decision to the Court of Appeals, that's not a de novo review in most cases.
Okay.
Then you're looking at the record, and based on that record, was there an error that was made?
Okay.
De novo review, you can bring all new witnesses in.
Okay.
You can have a completely different trial.
Wow.
Isn't that
That's
interesting?
very interesting. Yeah.
Has that happened to you so far?
Yeah, I think
Really?
it's pretty common. I mean,
Okay.
So they come back to you then?
no.
No.
And when a hearing is done, we always tell people you've got the right to
Right.
to review this, have a de novo review.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing about it is, people don't come in front of me on a contested hearing unless they disagree about something.
Okay.
And they disagree usually pretty strongly, because in most cases there's another step in between, like mediation through conflict resolution. So they've had a chance to try to talk this through. Lots of times there'll be an attorney on board, or on both sides there'll be attorneys, and they've talked about it, and they can't come to a decision, so they need me to make a decision.
Gotcha.
The chances of me making a decision that both parties are happy with is very slim.
Yeah.
It really is.
No, I understand.
And that's, you know, that's the nature of the game. I decide for people that when they can't agree, and so the chances are someone's going to be disappointed with the decision I make.
I would think the variety and the quickness that you have to decide these would be a really good training for the other component, because you got to think, you got to be ready all the time. This is, and more than once every day.
Right.
Yeah.
And then on most days I'll do different kinds of
Yeah.
cases, all different kinds of cases in one day,
Yeah.
which I really enjoy, because you can switch over. You have a body of law here and procedure for family, and then you've got a different one for restraining orders, and you have a different one for small claims. If you go across the street and do bond hearings or a preliminary examination in a felony case, again, different law, different procedure, but they really all come down to what are the facts on this side, what are the facts on this side, what's the law, what's the decision, what findings do you make from those facts. They really, in a way, they're really all the same.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So
Well, your job's never boring.
No,
that's
can't
for
be.
sure.
no,
Yeah.
it's always interesting. I do really enjoy it. I love doing what I do.
Yeah. Well, if you had to, list one or two platforms that you're running on, Dave, what would you say they would be?
Well, I think overall, and I think I've sort of started to make this clear here from our conversation, is I really believe in a level playing field, and my motto here in this campaign is I judge cases and not people, and what I mean by that is I judge the case that's in front of me, and not who is in front of me, or what what opinion I might have about who is here, and I think that's really an important attribute of anybody who's making decisions the way I am. I don't personalize my decisions. You might come in front of me someday, and I might not like your case. I might like the other side's case, but it doesn't mean I don't like you. Sure. And I think that's the difference. And I don't personalize it, and I don't think most other parties who are in front of me take it personally either. I mean, a lot of people, when they don't prevail, they still say thank you on the way out of my courtroom, because I think they've had a chance to be heard. Part of this whole leveling of the playing field, and this is some of the programs that I've started and helped put through here in the community. One is the Legal Assistance Clinic. I think you may have heard of the free Legal Assistance Clinic here in the county. We started that just over a year ago. When we started it and originally wrote the grant for it through the state bar, we anticipated about 120 people would be served in the first year, and we had, I think, over 550 or something in the first year. It runs on a very low budget because it relies completely on volunteers. We have volunteer attorneys, we have volunteers from the university, we have volunteers from the courthouse and from the community. The public libraries are the ones that provide the space for it, so it really is run without almost any overhead, and it's set up such that people can come in without an appointment. They can come in, sit down, and within a few minutes, in most cases, they can sit down and talk to an attorney about the problems that they're having.
Well, and we want to talk about your candidacy, but I do have a question about that. Are there income restrictions on that? I mean, really?
We didn't put an income restriction on that. We have had some experiences with a couple of individuals that were running a business, and then when they came back a second or third time with questions, we thought, you probably should hire an attorney to do this. But we decided not to put any restrictions on that. We also don't restrict it to counties either. If someone comes in from Fond du Lac County or from Outagamie County, we thought the whole purpose of this is to help everybody in the community, and then you get in that problem where with people who live in this county but they have a case in Fond du Lac County. We decided not to put any kind of restrictions on that, and we don't put an income restriction. We do keep a tally of that just to find out, get demographics of who's coming in, but we don't put any kind of restriction on it.
Okay.
Just to follow up on that, are you surprised by the number of people?
Not really.
Not
at
really?
all. No.
But you're getting a lot of responses.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that say about
Well,
society right now?
I think part of the idea came from really just from in family court, in the family court office, just seeing how many people would come in without representation and without any real idea of what to do.
Okay.
They know what the problem is, you know. I can't see my children, or my child support level is too high, problems like that, but they don't really know what to do. And they come to the court and ask the family court, what can we do about it? And the court really can't
Give
advise
them
about
advice,
that.
no.
And I think the clerk of courts had the same experience, and all the officers in the courthouse really had that same experience. People were coming looking for help, but not knowing even where to start. And so I wasn't surprised by the numbers at all. It's really a lot of people. And over the past year that we've had the clinic running, we've noticed that there's even during that 1 year, there was even a shift from primarily family cases to a lot more that are financial. There are credit card problems, there's
Understandable.
foreclosures, bankruptcies, there's all kinds of those kind of questions, and more people are coming in with
Yeah.
need for help.
One thing that we've seen more of in recent years, especially with our prisons and our jails getting just overcrowded to the point of no return, it seems, is creative type of alternative programs. The STOP program, the drug court, we've heard other things floated, like things to help keep teens out of trouble if they're skipping school on a regular basis, this kind of thing. How do you feel about these things overall, and do you think that they're helping?
Well, whether they're helping or not, that I think remains to be seen. I think as a public defender, throughout my entire career, I've always advocated for alternatives to incarceration, and I think the idea of it is really a very good one. And I've always strongly believed that there are lots of social issues that underlie most criminal activity, and I think that's a mature approach to take to it. At the same time, I think we also have to be careful that we're not compromising public safety, obviously. And I think that's where we've seen, in my lifetime, I've seen the pendulum swing back and forth a couple of times. I think we've all seen that, where there's a sort of a pressure to try to help people who are coming into the legal system, and then we've seen the pendulum swing the other way, where incarceration was the answer. You get tougher on crime, and now I think, for whatever reason, I think the pendulum's swinging back the other way, where we're starting to look at, and I think the most recent trend, I think, has been really more of an economic one. It's like we can't afford to keep going this way, and I think that's probably true, and I think that to continue to explore those options is something that we need to do. I think in a lot of ways we're still dealing with the problems that we tried 100 years ago with prohibition, and I think that was the recognition that there's a problem with substance abuse, alcohol, and there was one attempt with prohibition to do that maybe led to maybe even bigger problems, and so that was abandoned. I think that the same social ills are still here and they're always going to be with us. So I think it is time to take a mature stand on that and look at other ways of dealing with it.
So we've got these other creative type things that are aimed at, geared toward keeping people out of prison and out of jail when they qualify for those types of programs. Then on the other hand, we've got truth in sentencing that's making people stay in for a select period of their sentence. And so that's adding to the overcrowding, if you will. It certainly isn't getting people out sooner. It just seems like we've got one thing sort of combating against the other. Is there a happy medium here at all, or are we doing the best we can with what we have?
Well, again, I think truth in sentencing was part of that swing of the pendulum toward incarceration rather than treatment. And I think the shortcoming of truth in sentencing was always there, and the shortcoming of it is, as you know, in truth in sentencing, what the judge decides is, for example, I'm going to for this offense, I'm going to sentence the defendant to 10 years in prison, and 10 years of incarceration. So, 10 years from today is when that person can be safely released from incarceration. And I think the idea there was to show the public that there's going to be a real sentence that's served there. The problem with it is that the judge doesn't necessarily know on the day of sentencing when that person can safely be released. Under the old parole system, the judge would impose a sentence of 10 years. At 30%, the person would become parole eligible, which means that the department could have released that person on parole. At 60%, they would have a mandatory release, which is when most people would be released 60% of their sentence. And then at about 80-some%, they would have the maximum discharge, and that's when almost everybody was released. Still, within that old parole system, before truth in sentencing, the department could still, because if they didn't feel the person was ready to be released, they could still hold them. And I think that was a system that made a lot of sense because the department was the one who was really supervising the person, could really see that.
Sure.
With truth in sentencing, I think the shortcoming of it is, and I've always thought this, is that the judge decides on the day of sentencing when that person's going to be released, and not any sooner. If you believe that a sentence is going to be corrective, if you believe that putting someone in prison for 10 years is really going to change them and improve them, if you really believe that, then if you say you're going to go into prison for 10 years and you're going to stay for 10 years, even if your behavior is really, really good, even if you turn yourself around, you don't give that person any incentive to correct themselves, do you? That's the shortcoming of the truth in sentencing.
Question on why there are so many people in Wisconsin in jail. Minnesota has roughly the same population as Wisconsin does. There are twice as many Wisconsinites in prisons in Wisconsin than there are in Minnesota. Is that because more Packer fans are in jail than Viking fans, or why is this? Is the law is tougher? Judge sentencing is tougher, but it's almost double.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. I know there's a trend overall in the country, at least there has been over the past decade or so, toward incarceration. I think this country leads the entire world in the population that's incarcerated. Wisconsin is one of the leading states in that respect. I don't know. I mean, I think that there has been, as I said, over the last 10 or 15 years, there's really been a trend toward incarceration as the solution to a perceived prison problem or perceived criminal problem. So that's I think what's behind all of that.
I mean, it's double. I mean, that's just really an incredible question. You were appointed court commissioner. Now you're running. Former Associate Justice Senator O'Connor is going around the country now trying to sell states on the proposal to appoint judges under a merit system rather than to elect them. What's your response to that?
I think the idea is not a bad idea.
Okay.
I really believe that merit ought to be the deciding factor in anything, including judicial appointments or judicial elections. I think merit ought to always be what we're focusing on. How to achieve that, I don't know. I mean, there are arguments that if you go to the appointment system, then you take away the voters' right to decide who's going to be the judge, and I can understand that. I think that's a very valid point. I think there are shortcomings with some appointment processes where it's simply an elected official appointing someone as a judge. I think that the danger there is that it can be handed out as a sort of a political gift,
Would you concede, though, that in electing judges, most of us lack the information and the understanding to make rational decisions on the qualifications of judges?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the answer to that is to take away the right to elect them. I think the system that we have now is being looked at and is being looked at carefully. We do still have the limitation on not being able to align ourselves with a political party, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's a very good thing. That's being challenged, though, on freedom of speech grounds. I don't think that's the trend to take. I don't think that going toward partisan elections would necessarily be a good trend. The appointment. I know some states do a system that you're talking about where there's the
Missouri system. There's a commission.
Right. I think Alaska uses the same one.
There's
a panel that's appointed.
Exactly.
The panel makes recommendations, and then there's a decision from that. And I think in Alaska, after 6 years, there's an election where the public can either affirm this judge or else not. I think that would be wouldn't be a bad system to.
The other complaint of O'Connor is that the people who normally contribute to a candidate running for the judgeships are the lawyers who are going to appear before your court after you're a judge.
Right.
That's kind of a, we see this with Congress.
Right.
Whoever squeaks the most gets.
Right.
Do you think that's an issue?
I do. I really do. I do agree that that's an issue. And the same thing with, I think that it's also being looked at is not necessarily attorneys that are making contributions, but just
Corporate, sure.
parties that are making
Certainly.
financial contributions. And I think that the Wisconsin Supreme Court has recently said that that's not grounds to recuse yourself. Now, personally, for myself, I think I can hold myself to a higher standard than the Supreme Court holds me. And I think that if someone were ever to make a large contribution to me, I would recuse myself. The key, and I think the most important thing about recusal for a judge or a court commissioner is really disclosure.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is if there's a potential conflict for the judge, for the court commissioner, they should point that out in the hearing. They should say, by the way, folks, just so everyone knows, that person gave me $1,000 toward my just so everyone knows. Does anyone here have a problem with me hearing that case, hearing the case? And then everyone knows. Then you're all on notice that there's that. And then you can also just say, because of that, I don't feel comfortable hearing this case.
I want to recuse myself.
But disclosure, I think, is the key, so that everyone is clear that that's been the history there.
Okay. We're running out of time, Dave, but
Okay.
I wanted to touch on one thing in particular is courthouse security. I mean, we've heard about it a lot, about maybe 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. Then it sort of disappeared. They did try some stepped-up measures, and then those went away. Do you feel that we currently have an adequate security system in place at the courthouse?
Well, I guess the courthouse itself is an old building, and it's an historic old building. And as you know, there are doors all the way around it. Now, not everybody who comes to the courthouse drives and parks in the parking lot. A lot of the people who come to the courthouse either come by bus from another community, they live in the area, they work in the area, and they walk in through all those doors. Those doors are all used throughout the day. I don't advocate locking the doors down so we just have one entrance like we did after September 11th in 2001. We had that for a couple of months.
Yep.
And I don't advocate doing that again. Personally, my day-to-day workload, I do have a sheriff's deputy, a uniformed deputy, who's in my courtroom whenever we hold a restraining order. And that's something I've requested, and the sheriff has always accommodated that. And the main reason I do that is because we frequently will have a petitioner who's afraid to come to court and confront the person who's abused them. And we can assure them that there will be a uniformed deputy in the courtroom. Primarily, the concern for me with courthouse security really revolves around, again, level playing field, everyone getting a fair chance at a fair hearing. If someone's afraid to come to court and advocate for themselves, then I don't think they're getting a fair hearing. So I am comfortable with the level of security that we have in the courthouse right now.
Okay. Almost out of time. Why don't you take about 30 seconds, look into camera 3, tell folks why they should. I know 30 seconds is not much, but
30 seconds
just tell
isn't much.
folks why they should vote for you on February 16th.
Thank you. As I said, I feel I'm uniquely qualified to be circuit court judge here in Winnebago County because of my background, because of my time I've spent as a court commissioner and as a public defender. As I've said, as a public defender, I was a true believer in the system, true believer in all of the things that the system is designed to do to give everyone a fair chance and to really promote a forum where everyone can be heard. And that's what I'm all about, and that's why I would ask everyone to vote for me on February 16th.
All right, very good.
did.
Thanks so much.
Best of luck to you.
Thank
Just
you.
sit tight, and we're going to take a short
just-
break.
we
We'll
gotta-
be right back, and just hang on.
Dear Mom and Dad, well, I finally have some time off, so I'm writing to tell you that I'm doing well. We have good days and bad days over here. We try to remember the good ones and get through the bad ones. Mostly we have each other, and that's what keeps us going. And Mom, since you asked, if anyone wants to help, just tell them to contact the USO. You can't believe how much they do for us. With love, Your son, Michael.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. The Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
We were in an emergency situation. We don't have extra. We have a little bit of water and a little bit of food. A meeting place, no.
No.
I don't think we have a first aid kit.
We have tuna fish, we have
Right.
beans, we have canned tomatoes,
True.
you know.
That's true, but that's really not survival food. Tomato paste.
Yeah, well, yeah, right?
Welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh, and we're very happy to be joined now by a candidate for the Oshkosh Common Council. Allan Siiman is here, and thanks for coming out and braving the cold tonight to come here. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We always start with candidates, especially, it's especially important when there's someone new like yourself who's not run for political office here in the area, to, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
Okay, my name's Allan Siiman. I was actually originally born in upstate New York, and my family moved down to Florida. Davie, Florida is where I grew up.
Okay.
And I went to school, University of Florida in Gainesville. I'm a Gator.
You're a Gator.
Don't you wish you were there now? It's a little warmer, although probably not much, but.
Yeah, now would be a good time to be there, but the summers are just deadly there. It gets so hot that it's tough to live there in the summer.
So what's a Gator doing in Badger Country then?
Well, I got a job here with
Okay.
Crown Cork and Seal, who
Okay.
I've been working for 5 years.
Okay.
I was hired in February of '05,
Okay.
and I've been here since.
Okay.
So my wife and I, we bought a house in July 2006. We live on Irving, close to the park, with
Okay.
our little dog, little Shih Tzu. So.
Okay.
And
You have
we're-
children?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
All right. Okay. Very good.
All right, so why are you running for council?
Yeah.
Well, I'm currently on the city parks board, and I had some friends who saw how I was doing on the parks board,
Okay.
and they liked my stance, especially with the dogs in the parks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big advocate of allowing leash dogs on our city park trails, and they pushed me in that direction of, hey, you should run for council. You can do some good things. And the more and more I did research to see what was going on in Oshkosh, the vision of Oshkosh, the city manager, what the city manager is doing with the streets and sewers, and I said, hey, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring,
Okay.
see how it goes. I think we can keep the momentum going on the good things like the Riverwalk, make the commitment, things like that to really turn things around in Oshkosh.
Okay. I know Dan and I disagree on this dogs in the park thing, and I'm going to let him, since you brought it up, I'm going to let him go there.
Yeah.
But I did want to just ask you about your time on the Parks Board. How long have you been there? And what is, maybe the one or maybe even the two things that stand out the most as far as what you've learned or what your contributions have been?
Okay. Well, I was appointed in December 2008.
Okay.
I believe my first meeting was in February of '09.
Okay.
As far as what one or two things I've learned on the Parks Board, it's just listening to citizen input, making sure that they're being heard, especially the ones who come forward to the meetings. It takes a lot of courage for citizens to come to a meeting, and if they do, that what they have to say is important. So you want to take that to heart and make sure to focus on what's being said. So that was the biggest thing. Oh, and also just talking amongst the Parks Board. I mean, these people a lot of these members have been on the board for years, and it's just their experience and their commitment to the city. It humbles me because I meet a lot of these people when I'm knocking on doors trying to get votes. So it makes me feel good that I live in a town where we have so many people that care about about the city.
Has it given you any greater insight, Allan, as to how the city operates?
I would say so, yes. The issues, the issues from the Parks Board go up to the City Council. So let's take, for example, you got the dogs in the park. So that's not the only issue. There's other issues that come up, like the observation tower and just when a group comes to you saying what they want to do and the dialogue that goes on between the board and the recommendation, because that's what it is. Even if we approve things, they're not going to get passed into law until the council takes action on them. So just seeing it's similar to the council, but ultimately the council has final say over what happens.
Okay, dogs in the park. Go for it, Dan.
Well, I read your answer in the Northwestern, and so
Okay.
why don't you tell us what your proposal is about dogs in the park?
Okay. Well, what I'd like to see is allowing leash dogs on all city park trails. I actually voted against the Rush Park amendment for that trail just because I wanted to see it in all trails.
Okay.
I don't think it should be a step-by-step procedure. I think it should be a one and done. And there's a lot of people that say, why can't I let my dog into the park? I'm going to pick up after him. And 90% of people are going to pick up after their dogs, have their dog on a leash. And the people that are not going to do that, well, they're in the parks. They're letting their dogs in the parks anyway.
That's true. Okay, now then you had some proposal about picking up dog poop. Tell us about that.
Okay. Well, my proposal was to increase the dog license
Okay.
fee by a couple of bucks. And the reason being twofold. One is to have set up dog wastebasket areas throughout the park trails so people are more apt to pick up after their dog.
Okay.
And the second one is to safety. I know there's a concern. One of our Parks Board members brought up, he's a bicyclist and he was lunged at by a dog. And that's a concern of mine, is we can widen the trails to have a mixed use so we have bicyclists and walkers on the trails. So.
Okay, my Irish blood is under control, but my wife and I are daily walkers
Okay.
in Menominee Park. In fact, my wife walked 1,000 miles in 2008 in the park.
Okay.
I don't want dogs in the park, leash or not leash. And I think if you interviewed a lot of the people that we run into and have run into every day for the last 2 or 3 years, there would probably be 9 to 1 or that they do not want any dogs, leash or not leashes in the park. I think it's unenforceable. I see dogs without leashes in the park all the time. There's no one enforcing the current ordinance that they're not supposed to be in the park. I don't think anyone's going to be in the park seeing whether they have a leash or not, because they don't care if they don't have a leash now. So that's my favorite spot. That's my exercise. I have enough trouble on the paths with bikers who don't tell me biker on left, biker on right when I'm walking, or the skaters with their roller skates. And I don't want to have another group with dogs that have long leashes that are coming up on me on the other side. So that's my playground, and I don't want dogs in my playground. It's my walk ground.
I do think the leash should be 6 foot or 8 foot, so they don't have.
Well, that's an ordinance anyway. I think
Yeah,
it has to
yeah,
be 6 feet or less.
Now, was this proposed to the Park Advisory Board at all? Did you make this proposal?
This it's been coming up again and again.
Okay.
We, like I said, we approved just the one trail in town, and we haven't approved anything further. So it's still floating out there. if you will.
Okay. And the referendum idea never came to the Park Advisory Board, did it? Or did it?
Yeah, it was. Well, the council we talked about it in the Parks Advisory Board, and then I believe it was a 4-3 vote on the council to not proceed with the referendum.
Okay. Okay. What did you do with the special events thing? Did that come before the Park Advisory Board too?
That is actually on our next meeting.
it
That's
is?
going to be talked about. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think about? I know one of your members had almost a heart attack when it was first brought before the advisory board. He thought no one could read it. It was too long. Ought to be sent back to the attorney and done over again.
Yeah, I think we should take a look at it. But I do think there definitely needs to be citizen input, as well as the organizers of these events to see what they think. I don't want to make a comment. I haven't seen the full report, but there's got to be flexibility between who's putting on the events. We don't want to discourage them from having events in town. At the same time, we don't want to have the taxpayers foot the whole bill.
Sawdust would be a big expense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Cheryl. I'm back down now.
Okay, I want to
Yeah.
go back to the dog issue.
Oh, no!
Only because I thought your comment, Alan, about kind of all or nothing was interesting, because I do think that dogs should be allowed in parks with restrictions and so forth. So I'm with you there. But if we can't get it in all the parks, wouldn't it be better then for dog owners to at least be able to go walking with their dog in a park in the city, as opposed to going out to the county dog park where the dogs are running loose, which that's not a bad thing, but I don't like going out there because they are running loose, and half the time people aren't with their dogs and they can't see what's going on. You know, and I want their dog to be under control as much as mine is, you know. So wouldn't it be better to have something as opposed to nothing?
Well, yeah, it would. But we have that now. We have the one trail where people can bring their dogs on that trail. And right now it's being tested. We'll see how it goes. But I do think at the end of the day, if like South Park approves allowing dogs in South Park as opposed to Menominee Park, I think there's going to be a little bit of resentment from the people that want to see it in Menominee Park, or vice versa.
Well, at least people could just drive in town, which is a little bit easier than driving out of town to the park that it's currently allowed in, because that is a little bit further out of town.
Yeah. But at the same time, a lot of the people that live around these parks, they don't like to drive. I mean, the weekends they may not want to drive at all. They just might want to go for a walk with their family, and I think allowing leash dogs in all park trails is just going to make us a more family-friendly city.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about some of the issues that are before the Common Council at present time, or will be coming before them. One thing that's coming up is the TIF for Oshkosh Corporation. You know, the city is going to be asked to give, I think it's $5 million in TIF money, so that they can get this contract, which is currently in dispute. The Plan Commission has already approved this unanimously. What are your thoughts on this TIF money for Oshkosh Corp?
Okay, I would have liked to have seen a little more a head start of how this was going on. I was just reading through the website today, and I noticed there was a press release in November, but I would have liked to have seen an earlier, I guess, notification that this was happening. It kind of caught me. It was almost like it happened and we're doing this. And I don't disagree with it. We need jobs in Oshkosh, and I think Oshkosh Corp provides a lot of the good jobs in town. So, but at the end of the day, I would like to see a little more transparency in the process with the TIF and the TIF money.
How do you respond to people who say they make enough money as it is? This is corporate welfare. Let's start there. What do you say to that?
I think their first quarter was $110 million. Wasn't it something
Yeah,
like that?
yeah.
A profit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that. That was just in the paper today.
Okay, I think it's difficult when you're a private company and you have a government contract, and they're basically competing against other towns. It's not like these vehicles aren't going to be built. They're going to be built somewhere, and we might as well have them built in Oshkosh, because I mean the state's throwing in $35 million, I believe it was $35 million for Oshkosh Corp. The least we can do is throw in a little money, and it's the first. It's not like they keep coming back to us. I think we should definitely develop some criteria, so if what the situation would be going forward. That's what I'd like to see.
I should tell you, it flew through the Plan Commission so quick that you wouldn't believe it. It was rubber stamped almost before it got. So there was very little dialogue on the Plan Commission on the approval of this. It was just an automatic almost.
Well, that's true, and criteria. There is criteria. It's the state law, and there are some things that the state law says you can't develop a TIF or give out TIF money unless certain things are met. One is blighted land, and I don't know how. I don't see where the land is blighted. But the other thing is the but-for test. But for this TIF, would this project be done? And I bet you every bit of money I have and every piece of property and asset that I own, that if they don't get this TIF from the city of Oshkosh, they're still going to move forward with this. They're not going to turn down hundreds of millions of dollars just because they're not getting $5 million from the city. how do you feel about that?
I feel that's possible, but at the same time, they're gonna make a note of that, saying, okay, Oshkosh is not business friendly. It's not, why do we have to stay in Oshkosh? Why can't we go somewhere else to change it? I mean, probably not going to change the name. I imagine they would stay with Oshkosh Corp. But
Well, yeah, but they're not going to uproot every bit of their
Right.
their
No.
operation here. They've been here forever, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I guess the state laws are there that govern TIFs, and I don't know how a city, whether it's Oshkosh or Appleton or Neenah or Madison or whoever, I don't know how you can get around the criteria that are already set. So if you were on the council, how would you justify your yes vote?
I would justify it as, listen, Oshkosh Corp is our biggest employer, 3,000 jobs, it's over 2,000, it's, I don't know, between 2,500 and 3,000 jobs. And this is just really a kick in the bucket for them. It's, $5 million, I don't want to say that's a little bit of money. It's not. It's a lot of money. But at the same time, like I said, the state's throwing in $35 million. They're going to build, these vehicles are going to be built somewhere. They might as well be built in Oshkosh.
Okay.
Let's talk about the Common Council a little bit. I assume you've observed some of their meetings.
Oh, yes.
What do you like and don't like about what they do as a council?
Okay. Well, I like the fact that they do seek citizen input. And for the most part, they do what us Oshkosh citizens want. The streets and sewers is a good example. The flooding issue, they dealt with that. I mean, this year, we're dealing with that now, and the city manager's done an excellent job with budgeting for that. What I don't like is some of the tones from some of the meetings. I think they could be a little more civil, especially with city staff.
Micromanaging bothering you at all?
A little bit. I'd like to see, our city staff are the experts. They're the ones with the experience in engineering or whatever the field may be. I'd like to see them have a little more faith and confidence in the staff.
Follow the budget at all, or is that unfair to ask that?
I do. I looked at the budget. The streets, the sewer. I took a look today. I was going through the operating budget, the capital improvements plan with all the money.
A lot of the economists are saying that 2011 could be worse than 2010, particularly for public budgets. Anything impress you in the budget or displeasure you in the budget that might be fat? Is there anything you could cut out of the current budget?
Boy, I tell you, it's tough. You got, your basics. We're talking about half our employees are police and firemen, and you'd hate
That's
to...
really 80-85% of the budget, isn't it? Employees and benefits.
Yeah. It's tough to cut people who are really essential for the city. So there's very little, if any, fat that I see. I do like the fact that they're focused so much so this year on the streets and the sewers.
Okay.
One of the things that you mentioned during the candidates forum, Allan, was something called PACE bonds. Now, I've not heard of those before, and I suspect a lot of viewers probably haven't either. Can you explain what PACE bonds are and how they're used for either creating new development or sustaining existing development?
Okay. Well, actually, on Christmas vacation, I was at my wife's family's house, and my stepfather-in-law, he got a subscription to Harvard Business Review, and I was flipping through there, and I noticed an article about PACE bonds, and I was reading through it, and I said, wow, this is really interesting. If this could go forward for many communities, this would be huge to really decrease greenhouse gas emissions, and not only that, it's a competitive advantage for businesses all throughout the country and the world. And what it is the gist of it is, let's say a company wants to do something to lessen their utility expense, wants to be a good steward of the environment, but they just don't have the money right away to do that. So what they do is they get an audit done of their facility, and then let's say the audit says that if you spend $300,000, we're going to take your utilities down from $20,000 a month to $15,000 a month. And they say, wow, we'd love to do that. We'd love to decrease our fixed costs. But at the same time, $300,000, we can't come up with that money. So what happens is that's where the municipality comes in with group of institutional investors, and sort of like a TIF, if you will, where you're basically borrowing money from the city, and what happens is they get it done, they borrow the money, and their property tax goes up. So let's say they borrow the $300,000 from the city, their property tax goes up, say, $1,500. But at the same time, their utility goes down $5,000. So the company is saving $3,500 every month. And so when a company looks at their costs, they're going to say, hey, this plant is operating more efficiently. And if we can get that done, not only that, for jobs in Oshkosh, but it's also going to decrease greenhouse gas emissions. And talk about sustainability right there. I mean, that's a grassroots effort, really.
So it's a development tool, it's a sustainability tool, and yet it's a way to, I guess, be more green as well.
Yeah, and we talked about in the forum where TIF money is we're so focused on getting new businesses into town, we're almost desperate, like the Marion Road redevelopment, where we're so focused on that, but sometimes we let these other companies just slip away and they close shop. Where I'm not saying let's invest in Crown, Cork, and Seal, my company, but set some criteria and let's get something done and look into this.
How do you feel overall about where we're at from a TIF standpoint? I mean, we are pretty much TIF'd out in Oshkosh because that's been the only development tool that we seem to have used for years.
I do believe that the main focus of TIF, like you had said, was blighted areas. We cannot let portions of Oshkosh be neglected, whether it's the riverfront or the old Walmart on 41 there. That's what the focus should be. I believe, for TIF money. After that, everything else is negotiable to me.
Unless its name is Oshkosh Corp.
Well,
because they're not blighted.
Oshkosh Corp, like I said, it's the biggest employer, and
he's being consistent.
I know, but it's not blighted. And
I would say I would include Oshkosh Corp as being negotiable. If they come back and say, hey, we need another $10 million, whoa, well, why didn't you tell us this the first time?
Okay.
You know what you two are talking about is what President Dwight Eisenhower said on his when he left office. He was worried about this military-industrial complex, and you both are arguing different sides of the coin on a military-industrial complex. Allan is arguing very articulately that it's the economic lifeblood of this community. It's the biggest employer, but you're saying, yeah, but they're wealthy and they're not playing by the rules of the TIF district. It's a
yeah. I mean, I guess that is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But TIF has been used as the only tool in the toolbox for years, and so you would be willing to kind of put the brakes on that a little bit, and look at other ways of creating development other than just using a TIF.
Yeah, like I said in the forum, the TIF money. I mean, take for example the Shopco that was going to be built by the Pick and Save there. I would have voted against that. I don't think that was a blighted area. And like I had said, was what are the clawback provisions in case the other Shopco closes within a year or two? I don't think there was anything really spelt out that said what would have happened.
I think Shopco may have come to that conclusion too. I mean, they Do you have any personal goals if you're elected to the council? Things you'd like to accomplish in your first term?
Absolutely. Well, the dogs in the parks is obviously one of
I
them.
hope you wouldn't bring that up. No, I'm kidding.
Infrastructure, I definitely like to see us keep making sure we're doing the improvements to the streets and sewers. The Riverwalk, I'd like to see us complete that commitment within the next 5 years to the Riverwalk. Also, I'd like to see us continue with the tree planting program. Maybe work with the Arbor Day Foundation. I know there was another foundation that was involved. I saw there was an article in the paper today about that. And then also, I'd like to see us redevelop and implement the bicycle pedestrian plan. It's about time we did that make us a more really healthy community.
Sure. No, I think those are all good proposals, except for the dog thing.
And I think that's a good one. So, we've talked. You've mentioned a few times, Allan, about streets and sewers and storm management and that kind of thing. Just out of curiosity, how do you feel about the council's handling of and decision to handle on its own some of those claims from the 2008 floods that the city's insurance carrier said the city had no responsibility to take care of?
That was a difficult situation. I knew some of the homeowners whose houses had flooded, and I really do think we should have made it. I mean, insurance company really did a poor job, I thought, of handling those claims. And I thought the city should have set an example with the situation. I didn't like how it was handled.
Okay.
Melvin Street, that's near your neighborhood, near my neighborhood. They want a retention pond. No, they want a pumping station to go into Miller's Bay because they don't want a retention in their neighborhood. And that's again a conflict between, what the city as a whole wants for retention ponds and what a specific neighborhood. That's a tough call too, isn't it?
Very tough call. I don't think anybody wants detention.
That's right. No, of course not.
It's how, and when you look at it, I can see their point too. It's tough when you move into a community. You want to see. You don't want to be able to not sell your home in case something happens, or in case you want to pass that home along. And I think that's what the detention bond. They see it as okay, this is coming into our area. It's one of those NIMBY factors that goes.
But you're now on the Park Advisory Board too, and they want a pump station that's twice the cost of the retention pond, with the water going into Miller's Bay. What do you think of that?
That's there's got to be a lot of education. Okay. I think you got to get citizen buy-in. I know at that event that Mr. Roloff was at, the city manager, it was unanimous against the detention basin and the pump station. They want the pumps. I don't think it's so much as wanting the pump station as
they just don't want the detention.
Don't want,
no, I understand that. Yeah.
Okay. You had mentioned during the candidates forum about the pioneering in the decades property. What do you think needs to be done there? I mean, clearly their issues have not been so much with the city, but with the DNR, and I don't even know where that's at anymore. It's been so long. I mean, do you have some thoughts, Allan, as to what can be done to sort of
push it,
speed that process along?
Well, we got the Riverwalk, hopefully being developed there. As long as I'm elected, I'll strongly push for that Riverwalk to get through that area, and offer development incentives like that. I don't have any problem with TIF money going to Pioneer. I'd love to see that place be used as a restaurant or entertainment venue to get more people in. When I moved to Oshkosh, that was a great thing. I took the riverboat cruise with some people in my company and that were customers that were visiting, and it was lovely. I would have loved to have taken my family there when they visited. So I think that would be great for Oshkosh to get something going.
Okay, real quickly, just look into camera 3. Tell folks why they should vote for you on February 16th.
Okay, people at home watching, I will promise to seek your citizen input on matters that are important to you. And I will do my homework on issues that are presented before the agenda, as evidenced by my time on the Parks Board. And I will let you know what I think, and hopefully we can reach consensus on a lot of items.
All right, very good. Thanks much.
Good luck to you.
On the 16th.
Thanks for coming to my door, too. You're the only council candidate that came to my door. So.
All right. That's going to do it for us. Thanks to you at home. Thanks to our guests on this show. Thanks to Dan. Thanks to the crew. And we will see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.